Netanyahu's brother, dead. Ben-Gvir, critically wounded. An Iranian missile, a burning house. Claims race across social media faster than any newswire. But Israeli authorities are silent. No confirmation, no denial. Has Iran just struck Bibi's own family? As the Israel-Iran war enters its second week, a new front has opened, not on the battlefield, but online. Claims spreading rapidly across social media allege that Iddo Netanyahu, the brother of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, was killed when an Iranian ballistic missile struck his home in Tel Aviv.
Breaking. Reports coming in that Netanyahu's brother Iddo Netanyahu has lost his life after an Iranian missile strike targeted Netanyahu's family home.
A separate but related claim names Israel's National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir as having been injured in the same strike, with his house allegedly catching fire.
Last night, the Iranians struck the home of Benjamin Netanyahu. They killed his brother. They struck the home of Ben-Gvir. He was seriously injured. He may not survive.
The posts spread fast. Some went further, asserting that Israeli authorities were actively covering up both incidents. The source of much of the speculation traces back to Iran's Tasnim news agency, which published a report suggesting Netanyahu himself may have been killed or wounded. The outlet, listed by the US Treasury as linked to Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, offered no evidence of a strike. Instead, it assembled a string of circumstantial details: a gap in recent footage of Netanyahu, reports of tightened security around his residence, and the postponement of a visit by US envoys Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff. Tasnim also cited, at second hand, a claim by former US intelligence officer Scott Ritter, relayed through Russian media, that Iran had bombed Netanyahu's hideout and that his brother had died there. The outlet itself acknowledged the speculation was unconfirmed. The viral video purportedly showing Iddo Netanyahu's house on fire has since been debunked. Fact-checkers at Lead Stories traced the footage to a February 9th Facebook post by a photographer from an Atlantic County Firefighters Association. The fire, confirmed by local outlet WPG Talk Radio, occurred in New Jersey, weeks before the US and Israel launched strikes on Iran on February 28th. Searches across major news outlets covering the period between February 28th and March 9th found no credible reporting that Iddo Netanyahu had been harmed. There was equally no confirmation that Ben-Gvir's residence was ever targeted. This is not the first time such claims have surfaced. Earlier in the conflict, Iranian military assertions that Netanyahu's fate was unclear after a purported strike were called out by his own office as fake news, according to the Times of Israel. On March 2nd, Xinhua reported that residents near Netanyahu's Jerusalem office saw no evidence of any missile impact, despite similar Iranian claims at the time. With America being criticized left and right for the aggression against Iran, and especially bombing a girls' school, Donald Trump stood before reporters and told them the war with Iran was nearly done. The President of the United States said Operation Epic Fury, launched on February 28th alongside Israel, was running ahead of schedule and close to its end.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Iran, you called it an excursion. You said it would be over soon. Are you thinking this week it will be over?
No,
Are you talking
but soon.
about days?
I think so.
Okay, and with respect
Very soon. Look, everything they have is gone, including their leadership. In fact, there are two levels of leadership, and even actually, as it turns out, more than that, but two levels of leadership are gone. Most people have never even heard about the leaders that they're talking about, so.
But Trump made clear that patience had limits. Soon after speaking to reporters, he took to social media to warn that if Iran moved to block oil shipments through the Strait of Hormuz, the response would be unlike anything Tehran had seen.
If Iran does anything that stops the flow of oil within the Strait of Hormuz, they will be hit by the United States of America 20 times harder.
Tehran did not wait long to respond. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, in a statement, dismissed Trump's timeline and made its position plain. The war's outcome was not Washington's to decide.
The equations and future status of the region are now in the hands of our armed forces. American forces will not end the war. It is we who will determine the end of the war.
The IRGC went further, warning that not 1 litre of oil would leave the region if US and Israeli strikes continued, a threat that markets were already beginning to price in. Brent crude briefly touched nearly $120 a barrel on March 9th, its highest point since Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. Against that backdrop, several countries were working behind the scenes to push for de-escalation. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister, Kazem Gharibabadi, confirmed that China, Russia, and France had all reached out to Tehran, exploring the possibility of a ceasefire. Iran's terms were straightforward: no further acts of aggression. Whether those conversations gain traction is another matter. At this point, though, a ceasefire seems a distant reality. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has said Iran is unlikely to resume negotiations with the United States following recent hostilities, citing what he described as a bitter experience with past talks.
After 3 rounds of negotiation, and after the American team in the negotiation, said itself that we made a big progress, still they decided to attack us. So I don't think, talking with Americans anymore would be, on our agenda anymore.
Some critics also echo the same sentiment. Ross Harrison, a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute in Washington, told Al Jazeera that from Tehran's perspective, an early exit from the conflict carried real risks.
Ending the war would only allow the Americans and Israelis to conclude that Iran is weak, which could encourage them to become even more aggressive.
Trump seems sure of a victory, but so do Iran and the IRGC. For now, in this war of attrition, both sides are standing their own. But for how long?